When you get to the grape juice making phase of your grape growing season, the first thing you want to do is clip the grape leaves away from the grapes so that the sun can get at them. And once you've done that, you want to put netting over them as quickly as possible. I've used string to tie the netting onto the top of the fence, but now I use a stapler. There's two settings on the stapler. I find that the easy one is the one to use. And then after you staple it along on the top, you have to go down and make sure it's stapled on the bottom of the fence. Otherwise, birds will fly up underneath the netting and get the grapes. When you've cleared away the leaves from the grapes, this is what it looks like. Nice and juicy, plump grapes thanks to the irrigation system I put in this year. And the sun shines down on them and makes them sweeter. And you can give them a few days, or maybe even a week, to ripen this way. Or longer if you're into it, but I think a few days is enough. Plus, when they're exposed, they're very attractive to birds, like I said, and even raccoons will come by and take them if they can. And the netting is a hassle. It's hard to put up, hard to take down. I'm not always convinced it's effective. But it is important to expose the grapes, give them a day or two. At least, not only because it makes them sweeter, so I believe, but also because then you can go through rather quickly and clip them all, and you need to do that because the grape crusher has a great capacity for grapes and needs them all in a hurry. The whole crushing and squeezing process should happen fairly quickly, so you need easy access to the grapes. It's quite a pleasant Zen-like thing to do, just up there in the quiet, clipping away. You have to be sure you can see where you're clipping though, otherwise you might clip a fingertip. And when all the leaves have been clipped away, then you can clip the grape clusters and put them in a tray. You can see how easy it is now that they've been exposed. Not many grapes on the other side of this fence. I haven't been hard-nosed about keeping people away. In fact, I encourage them to have a sample if they're walking by, if they're asking me any questions about them. They're really not much use to you unless you have a whole lot of them and you've got a way to destem them and crush them. I've been doing this now for over 20 years, every year. When I started, I did the destemming by hand, which was a lot of work. It took a lot of time. One year, I spent so much time on it, and then I was making wine from the grapes, and somehow the wine got ruined. A lot of wasps this year, more than earlier years. It's partly why I wore this lab coat and a hat. gloves. I haven't actually been stung yet, but you know, it's good to take precautions. I like to make sure everything is really clean. I wash it quite a few times before I use it. Because of course it sits around in the garage or under the deck all the rest of the year. It gets dusty and animals crawl over it. If not for the fact that freezing the juice killed all of the bacteria, I'm not sure I would even proceed with making juice. I couldn't find a tray that fit the whole length of the crusher, so I got 3 trays, and I'm glad I did. All I need to do at this stage is make sure that the lips of each tray overlap the lips of the other tray lip, so that nothing is lost between the trays. And here we have the most enjoyable part of the procedure, I think. Something very pleasant about machines that crush things. I know that sounds weird, but if you doubt it, just go on YouTube and you'll find quite a few videos of things going through machines where the machines are either chewing them up or crushing them. Not all of the stems are pushed to the end of the destemmer. A few get through with the grapes, and they've got to be picked out one at a time. Took the lid off the destemmer so you can see exactly how the grape stems mechanically are manipulated to come to the end of the destemmer crusher. Before I had found this machine, I didn't get as much grape juice as I might have, because the stems would go into the press along with the grapes, and of course they would offer resistance to the crushing feature of the press. Resistance to the press. But having the ability to remove them from the grapes really lets me get more juice out of the grapes than I otherwise might have. The woman I bought this crusher destemmer from, I bought it used, told me that she and her husband didn't use a press. They just destemmed and crushed the grapes and then let them sit in a primary fermenter, fermenting away, and then I guess they would strain it. And then probably put the resulting juice in a carboy. Grape juice is really sticky, so you want to put on some kind of rubber glove if you have to touch the grapes. And there are a few places in the whole process where you need to be quite careful that you don't spill things, because you can lose a lot of work. Like if I spilled all these grapes all of a sudden, that's days of, well, that's a whole year of waiting for these things, and clipping leaves and clipping grapes, and a lot of work up to this point, so you have to be quite careful. Once you start pouring the grapes into the press, the juice from the crusher comes right through the press and into the bucket. And I would say most of the juice is obtained that way. Maybe only a third of the juice is obtained by pressing it. 2/3 from the destemming process and crushing process. Of course, if I had a pneumatic press. I'd probably get more juice out, but this is the old school style. Takes a long time, but it's quite pleasant. I enjoy the whole pressing process. Wasps will fall or jump into this juice and drown there. So I have a colander or a strainer that I use to strain them out, and I flick them away. These wasps are surprisingly robust. You might think they're dead. They might have been in there for hours and they're not moving. You flick them out onto the lawn and they start moving and then they'll fly away. The juice is incredibly sweet and quite thick. It's kind of unpleasant to drink. It's just too sweet. So when I use it for juice, I dilute it 1-to-1 with ice cold water. So ice cold juice, ice cold water, half a cup every morning. It's great. Last year I think I got 24 bottles, these orange juice bottles, containers. They hold 2.47 liters each. But this year I only expect to get about 14 or 15 orange juice containers full of juice. Not exactly sure why. I think it might just be because some of the vines are too old, or maybe I was too aggressive when I pruned last year. This is another spot where you really need to be patient and careful. I need to leave a lot of room at the top of the orange juice containers because grape juice will expand in the freezer, and when I didn't leave this much room, it would come out through the top and make the interior of the freezer quite sticky. Now what do you do with the leftover stems and seeds? I plant them, and you can see there's a bunch of grape vines that are growing there. You can also see next door there's a brand new house being built, and it's quite large. It has 8 bedrooms, and someday it'll probably be like a rooming house or something, so privacy is going to be really important in the future. So what I'm planning is part of the boundary here will have a very high grape trellis, and the grapevines can grow up and afford some measure of privacy, at least in the spring and summer months, and the rest of the boundary will have tall cedar trees. So I just dig a shallow hole and dump the grape seeds and skins in it. Hard to see the wasps. There's quite a few buzzing around this thing. Go, cover them up. Hopefully they'll grow next year. Sometimes they don't really take. I'm not sure why. I had to do this for a few years before they started growing.